I'm going to attempt to use some therapy language here, okay? Because I want to bridge the gap of the communication here. So I feel it's a bit tank versus support. So instead, I want to phrase it this way. Everyone's pain is valid. Let's all have a big hug. Okay, everyone's pain is valid, right? So support players want to have more fun, and Flats kept bringing up things like, "Oh, it was great. Everyone just dove the Zen, and he always died. Sometimes he got a kill, but it's like Zen players hated that, and that's the reason why they invented Brig to begin with as an answer to not have that happen. It was the design goal expressed so that wouldn't happen anymore. But I'm with Flats as well at the same time because trying to play tank myself. I probably shouldn't play on the laptop I'm currently on. That's a mistake. Don't play on a laptop. Get a real PC. That's been rough. But tank is the easiest to counter role of all of them for sure. And especially if you don't have the right picks, like getting counterpicked as tank, it used to be like, all right, the enemy tank was counterpicking me in the hog era, right? Now it's like half the characters in the game are good at countering tanks in one way or another. And it's so obnoxious to play. And that's where I get into my DPS anger a bit, where the support utility from DPSs to counter tanks is super annoying. And then on top of that, you got Discord and Ana disables. And there's so many ways for tanks to get screwed and be forced to swap. And I think remembering the phrase, everyone's pain is valid. Well, now we'll start to think about, do they counteract this a bit? Because we can kind of expect when they address a role like support and they start giving them all these tools, it's going to have a knock-on effect somewhere. And Flats was ahead of this over the past months, I'd say, where he's like, hold on a second, tank is getting much less fun. It was super fun to begin with because I would argue, just ran over everything, right? And now supports easily fight back in many cases. Though I will mention, like the Mercy Beam triage healer, that being reverted, I think that matters a lot. You'll be able to damage through Mercy Beam, for example. Ana, sleep going down. Like, I think they're already paying attention to this, and I just want us to track this narrative as it goes through a bit, because I think the tank role is having less fun for sure as the support role gets buffed up. Because, and I think I said this last podcast I was on, but it's going to be the case that if support have more power and agency, well, then they're more reliant, or they're more powerful, let's say, on what happens in the tank battle altogether. So I want to track this, I guess, is my point. And I agree with the pain points Flats has about tank. I think the devs are just designing the game in real time, and ideally this would have happened behind closed doors instead of them doing PvE for years and years and misallocating resources and projects that never came and all that, right? Like, we're kind of just seeing it happen as it goes and have to suffer as I have the pain points as we go through.
That's good.
Yeah, I totally agree with that take. Actually, I think designing the game live is a great summary of what we're seeing. Because I think the example the Flats gave is a really telling one about, like, well, I'm Reinhardt and I'm fighting these two supports who are on their own. There's nothing else. I should win this fight, but it's no. You're just like, who's the guy who was forever like tortured to like drink the water but never like always stay thirsty? Like, that's what that reminds me of. Like, where it's just like he's just sipping the water, but it doesn't matter because he's still never gonna get what he wants. And I think that that is like the approach at Overwatch when it's like it makes sense game. It's like this is a team game. Philosophically, I should win this fight, but then you oppose that with the reality of, well, this is also like we're thinking solo queue. I'm one of the support players, and I want to be able to fight back against the tank. This is two support players. They want to be able to fight back against the tank. It doesn't matter that he's the close range tank who got in close and must have used some cooldowns to get there. It feels shit if you're the two supports and you have no way to fight back against that one tank, right? So it's like fighting those two oppositional things of like, yeah, but to do it, there was a whole, don't you see the whole resource chain that took place before I got to that point? Like, for me to get there as Reinhardt, a lot happened. It wasn't just that I teleported there. I planned my path, I planned my resource management, and I got there. But that's the theory, but that fights against well, yeah, but I'm two supports now. I might have mispositioned or I might have missed cooldown, but I still don't want to feel like I can't fight this one tank as these two characters. I'm two players and I can't beat one guy. That feels so I think what we're seeing is the devs kind of try to figure out the philosophy of the game as like before they actually balance the game. Almost, I feel like that's almost what's happening, where it's like we have, because a lot of our fun is always a subjective term, but a lot of our fun has come at the opposition of other roles, right? So like season 1, people were like, tanks OP, man. I can't do anything. Then we had Sojourn meta and like Widow and Hanzo one-shot meta, where it's like nobody outside of those guys could do anything, right? Where you just sit there, you're like, oh, okay, well, Sojourn, Gap, GG. And now we're approaching like the support era, right? Where it's like, well, if they have these two supports and my supports are sniffing glue, GG, like it's unwinnable. And we're kind of fighting this battle because the devs keep trying to pull and they keep trying to be like, okay, well, okay, I know we made tanks too strong because we were really worried. Remember, that was the really worried.
There was just a couple of them, yeah, but for the most part, I think we're okay.
It was the worry.
Zarya.
It was Zarya then Hog, like back to back.
Zarya, yeah.
And don't forget Diva.
Diva got tuned down at the same time. You're right.
Yeah.
Zarya, Diva, then went to Hog, then Orisa. There was like a brief like people panicking over Ramatra in there too. But the point being that
He's
the
still
big
good.
he's still good.
Still good, yeah.
The concern point was at launch because we had switched from 6v6 to 5v5. We need to make sure the tanks are good. So the tanks were certainly Zarya and Diva were very, very good, and their tanks were also like not what people feared. Then it was like, oh, okay, DPS players and support players are now like, we don't feel good. So we got to make sure the DPS feel good. Now we got to make sure the support feel good. So I feel like we've just gone through that cycle. We're in season 4 now, so we've kind of almost taken a season to give everyone a little bit of a chance to be like, this is the characters or the niche characters that kind of dominate the game. And I guess what they're going to try and do is eventually then iron that out. And I hope, maybe this is copium, but I hope they'll eventually try and figure out a way where it's like, our fun shouldn't be so oppositional, because Frito's right. All our pain is valid. The fun doesn't need to be oppositional, where it's like, for them to have fun, I can't have fun. And I think that's probably the main problem we need to solve here. Sam, I know you haven't had a chance to speak in a while, so I want to let you have a
Yeah.
crack.
I wouldn't say that the idea that for me to have fun, they need to not have fun is solid in the game. I wouldn't say that's 100% true. I think there are some circumstances where that's true for specific characters. But like generally speaking, I don't think that's true. And again, I do think that they're kind of going as they're trialing things as they go on. But I don't want people to think that changing things like Brig necessarily that we're super against that. Like, I'm okay with some minor changes. It's just particularly the stats that are put onto this are so over the top that it will break the game. It's just going to. So if they want to trial and experiment with things, just be more careful with stats. That's all. Like, again, this is, you know what this is? This is the equivalent of Sojourn Season 2 in support. This is what that is, right? Where they changed the rail and upped their damage at the same time to compensate, and it was just too much, right? I Season 4 is going to start out like Season 2, and nobody is going to like it because some of this stuff is just too good. I hope it probably is too late. This is probably going to be what the pack they put it out knowing the hot fix. The hot fix thing is 6 weeks for the next patch.
No. It takes weeks to put it out because they have to clear it through Xbox, Sony, Nintendo Switch. So this is probably already locked in.
How are we getting this before we can stack with our friends? That's what I want.
I don't think we're ever getting that same
bingo.
This is preposterous. It really, like, ranked is gonna be dead. It's just gonna be so dead. People aren't gonna play this. But yeah, look, bingo. You're welcome. I've got no words on Brig anymore. That's all I got.
Before we move on, can I have one last thing?
Yeah. It's Flats.
We can talk live
Flats too.
You go first.
I just want to add on to our Flats example, okay? So Flats is in the back line, swings forever, can't kill supports. Because I think the devs find this feedback, I hope, useful. So my problem is, so what is he supposed to do as the tank player? What ends up happening is you just have to anchor around your own Mei walls or whatever and play Ram and just anchor a position, and that's what makes it kind of boring to play. Because like who am I supposed to go at? Well, they have Sombra and Mei and all these other picks that just like can't die to me, so you end up just like channeling being support heal fodder and playing off everyone else's abilities, which to some degree was kind of how main tank played in Overwatch 1 as well, but also why people didn't like it then. So it's like the arc of people not liking tank again is coming back, and it's going to come for the same reasons, basically, because you feel like you can't go anywhere, and when you do, the things don't die, so you just have to anchor in the perfect spot, absorb healing, and launch off of the resources. And that makes it definitely less fun to me, I'd say, especially when I don't have the Sombras or Meis or whatever on my team that are easily winning the tank battle, because it is so important. The answer is to just like hide, like a little scared, like big hitbox, basically, and be farm fodder. And that's what sucks about it. Is like you're just kind of have to wait for everyone else to set you up, and that isn't what like tank feels good about. And well, I don't know. I think I've made earlier points better, so I'll pause it there.
That's a fair point,
Tank,
Flats.
tank is the least Tank is the least fun role in the game, personally. in my
How,
opinion. Sorry,
how
Flats.
fast they up to. It's actually hilarious.
Well, it's tough. 'cause, like,
I would caveat that. I'd say tank is fun for like the first fight, and then they counter you, and then that's it. Now,
Yeah.
you start
But
off, you're
even
like,
then, it's
"Yo,
not
I'm
that
coming
fun
with it."
depending on who you are. I stream, dude. Like, I
That's
actually,
true. Okay,
so
yeah.
I actually play Mystery Heroes in the spawn room now, and I've actually won. Since I started playing Mystery Heroes in the spawn room, my win rate in first fight went up like 80%. Just saying. But I'm a little bit different than Sam here, and you're gonna probably laugh your ass off. I actually think we've hit the point with Brig where it's legitimately done so much psychological damage at this point that leaving her as like kind of like a niche pick for high level play, like where you play it as like an anti-dive character every once in a while, is the way to leave her. Don't bring her
I
back.
agree.
Like literally, like you are talking about a character that actually killed your entire franchise at one point. And it's like it's actually kind of back. And I would actually argue, I don't want to give any Twitter fodder to, all the people that post screenshots at 3:30 in the morning. Oh, look at the Twitch views. Nothing like that. But I can tell you from all my own personal analytics from YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, all that stuff, there is a pretty significant drop in excitement from season 2 character release to season 4. Running about the data, it was about a 10 to 20% drop in like excitement across the board. And I haven't even looked at Google Trends. I bet Google Trends at when season 4 launches will look very similar. I don't know what they look like, their numbers on the back end, but Sam's talked about this before. Google Trends, search trends are very, very much in line with people's interests around things. It's already took a small drop. It will continue to take small drops until some core gameplay aspect is changed. Because realistically, to people outside of Overwatch, Overwatch 2 is Overwatch 1 with one less tank. To the casual gamer who rotates Valorant, Apex all day long, they think it's the same game. If Brig came back and actually dominated the game for a second time,
it's over.
It's actually GG.
My roommate already won't play the game because of the
I
vulnerabilities.
don't think people understand how deep rooted that trauma of the character is. I genuinely believe Brig is one of the few characters at this point, if you leave her off to the side where she's okay in some niche situations and high players know how to use her and all the low level players have no clue, that's okay.
And obviously, like these are compounding issues, but it doesn't have to be this way. I think is the other thing I would add to what Flats is saying is that, I remember when we were in the dark days of the end of Overwatch 1, we would keep looking over across the fence at Apex Legends with jealous eyes, and we'd always point to the player counts, and it's always okay, peak because season starts, a little bit of dwindle as season goes, then another peak as a new season, but higher than the previous season. That's what Apex was doing for a consistent period of time, because every time they release a new hero, more people would come and more people would rejoin as well. So it doesn't actually have to be this way that we're actually losing players after the initial hype. Technically, if you're kind of hitting the nail on the head every time, people will keep coming back. Of course, they'll lose interest over time, but they'll keep coming back and in higher numbers. Flats?
There's a core gameplay design difference though with Apex, and like Apex also can come, like, don't get me wrong, they have tons of problems, but like they can also somewhat admit sometimes when they're wrong. And a good example of that was the season 15 reboot. They basically just reworked all of their characters. Their abilities stayed the same, but they changed all of the classes. Everyone got moved around, how they worked, different quirks, small reworks for other characters. A lot of people were really upset season 13, 14, thought the game was getting stale. Like the new character wasn't anything great. They had a Kiriko moment where they advertised the new character as like something special, and then it didn't work that way. Like in the game, it was like Catalyst Wall was supposed to counter their Seer, which is like their Brig, and then it didn't work that way. So everyone was like, "What the f***? How does it not work?" But at a gameplay level, the game can be shooken up pretty heavily, and it feels different. Overwatch doesn't do that. And I don't think it ever will.
So here's their answer to this. Actually, I don't know if that you had this on the subject line, SV.
Bingo.
No, actually, no. You're not going to guess what this is. Actually, there's a whole different arc. They've got a PVE mode coming out this season. And
Yeah,
I feel like
that's
a lot
true.
of the creators aren't paying close enough attention to this. Where this entire, what's it called? Star Watch? Am I right on that? That's the name of it?
Yes,
Star
the new
Watch
thing.
is a PvP mode with some PvE elements. And in Aaron Keller's blog post that literally just went live, I believe, like 20 minutes ago or an hour ago, I guess, he low-key put some like pretty intense language on it. And whenever Blizzard says like they'd like to get a lot more ambitious with something like this, that's what he said, right? So it's like they would like to do more spin-off modes or even spin-off universes, not just like crossover events with One Punch Man and whatnot, but like entirely different game modes and stuff. So to me, when you start bringing up Apex, I'm like, well, that's just a much more fun, casual game. Like we've been arguing about Brig for
Wait,
like
would
an
you say
hour,
Apex
and like
is a more casual game?
it's a more fun, casual game. Yeah, battle royale. So who do you think Tens is farming when that we goes like? There's hundreds of players in those lobbies that are signing up to play a battle royale. And get
Well, that's
farmed
my
by-
bingo card.
That's
Don't make me
because
hit it.
their
It's an old one.
their pub mode doesn't have extremely strict MMR changes like us. Like our game could do the same thing if Quick Play didn't have super strict MMR changes. I would argue that Apex Legends is way more competitive and ranked, like with ALGS and
yeah,
how
but some people
take
play it
ranked.
casually.
Oh, I mean-
Ranked fine, fair enough. They have the tournaments or whatever. I'm not as familiar with that, but it just as a genre, battle royale is a bring the kid fodder in on their cell phones and whatnot to get farmed by the few people who can win. It's a better casual game. And well, what is Overwatch's answer to that? Sam will keep saying make it battle royale also, but their answer is
Good.
PvE stuff
Bingo.
and that. So that's not only do we know that's coming this year. It was supposed to, right? Am I wrong in saying that? Like they said,
2023.
it's April, guys. We're doing the first PvP style
question.
mode. Luckily,
I had a lot of people asking me about this, and I didn't have an answer. Was there a public statement about no archives event? Because the
Good
archives
question.
events are like my like 2017 Retribution and Blackwatch were awesome. Like that was like really cool. Did you guys hear anything at all, or was there some kind of public
'cause
statement
that's
about
this
it?
time of year, right? It should have
Yeah,
been.
it
this
would have
season.
been like this. Yeah, it would have been this.
I guess
season, yeah.
Star Watch is the replacement to that. It's like a more
Okay.
advanced
Point.
version of that. The way they said is like they're like adding on to Junkenstein. It's like so Junkenstein's the thing over here. It's got its own universe
Oh,
lore.
okay, so
The
it's kinda
characters are
like-
playing a different thing. Star Watch is its own narrative. Oh, like it's like all the characters are new characters. You know what I mean? It's sort of like when Family Guy does Star Wars or something. Like they're all playing the Star Wars characters.
Okay, I'm down
It's
for
the
that.
same thing.
I forgot
which I
about
think-
that. That was really funny.
I'm really optimistic about actually. Like
Yeah, I
that
just didn't know what it was.
that has like
I haven't looked
endless
into it.
potential. We don't know enough about it to know what to expect. Maybe it sucks. I don't know. like
If it's
like
like
the
it-
Battle for Olympus wasn't enough. Let's just put it that way, right? Like it's like okay.
Yeah.
It's like goofy
That's also
characters
coming
wearing
back,
the
by the
skins.
way.
It's okay, and I guess that's going to come back each season. I guess it's going to recur. But this sounds to be more have more depth to it, just like the Junkenstein mode did. I would imagine each time they want to like add more, and for it to be a more advanced entity whenever they add these new things. So anyway, long story short, that's our casual appeal because the ranked game of Overwatch is too hard. Flats's take of removing MMR matchmaking in quick play, there would be fires in the streets. I
I'm
wouldn't
saying
mind
you wanted it the
personally.
same way. Like it was like you
I
saw those
don't- We have a different
pop-offs.
game. I hear you. I think we have a different game, and it's also a non-Activision thing. Keep in mind, like I come from the Call of Duty creator community, from the OG YouTube content creators back before Twitch and all that. Like I'm an old man, okay? Pub stomping in that game was a whole genre, right? And then they forcibly made that less and less possible over time with the matchmaker.
Don't people
So
hate
this
that?
is like an Activision thing.
Yes.
The players hate that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
hate it. I don't want to do that. I'm just telling you,
There's
this
a
is
sweet
their
spot.
philosophy.
There's a sweet spot for it.
There is a sweet spot.
for it.
I agree with that.
But we're kind of way. Are we still on the balance patch? SPB we just went.
We'll get back to it. I mean, this has been an interesting thing. I think it's relevant to discuss
Yeah.
all of these factors because it you're right. Like the PVE is something we don't necessarily talk about, but that's also I don't think it's our fault for not talking about it because we never hear anything about it. Like what do you
Real.
how often can you keep talking about something that there's no communication on it, right? How often are you gonna be, it's coming, fellas, it's coming. It's coming, fellas, it's coming. Like how long can you keep doing that same
Yeah,
cycle until we
Boy,
actually
cried
know
wolf.
more? So
Yeah.
If it is
I
like
do
Junkenstein, it's gonna be amazing.
oh
The-
yeah,
the upcoming thing.
yes, I still think it's gonna be. I still think it will be awesome whenever it comes. There's that again, that whole conversation about like, well, how will the PvE fit into all of this? Like, what audience will it serve? Will this continue to be a game that your average, again, Apex, Valorant, Overwatch switcher will continue to enjoy, or will they just completely abandon it for the PvE? In which case, like, it might not be a bad thing if this became the more hardcore mode, because then you wouldn't need to keep having this fight that we were talking about earlier, right? You don't need to keep having this fight of like, okay, here's Overwatch that makes sense in a team and coordinated environment. Then here's solo queue Andy who just wants to have fun and be able to dominate the lobby as well as right. So like, if that goes away, then now you can just make sure everything makes sense, and you don't have to have the flats versus two support scenario, and kind of be like, well, but actually, no, just make it make sense. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But Flats, I think you had something else to say before we actually move back to discussing the patch notes.
God, I don't even know where we are at this point. Where were we talking about at that point?
We're talking about
I think
Apex.
something about Brig, and yeah, I think again we're
How
still
it
talking
should
about
stay niche forever.
I think honestly, that's pretty much the end of my thoughts on that. Is like just keep her niche. Like Sam said, like there's always been a problem with Overwatch teaching players how to play the game. Like if you pick up Overwatch 2 tomorrow and you're a brand new player, you're pretty much guaranteed to not be good at the game for like at least 3 years. Like unless you have like some serious FPS background and you dedicate yourself for like a year, you're probably not going to have a good time if you're like first picking it up. It's never done a good job of teaching you the game. Like, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't teach you any of the niche mechanics. It doesn't teach you interactions. It doesn't even teach you everything that the character does. Like even like the F1 screen, like it just says what it does. It doesn't tell you numbers. Actually, that's actually a good point. I wonder if you guys have an opinion on that. Why do every time when they release a new character, they never say the numbers? You ever notice that? Like,
What do you mean?
I think it's a management thing.
it's a management
They don't like
thing?
to be married. They don't like to be married to it, I think, because they like to deflect from the responsibility of that, and then they have the ability to change it later. I
But
think
at the release, it's going to be those numbers no matter what. And then the next patch note says the numbers and what it's changing to. So like, why?
You're right.
Why do we hide?
I don't think
You know what I mean?
I don't think there's any deep logic to it. I think it's literally like somewhere someone is like, we don't do numbers here. Chadwick Boseman,
Like-
rest in peace, my man, meme. Like, I just think that's a company policy of like, no,
so-
we don't do numbers.
It doesn't feel weird to you though. Like for example, yesterday they were talking about the new character and they talked about his dash and they're like, well, he has a dash on a very small cooldown. It's like, it's 5, just 5 seconds. Just say 5
And
seconds.
it heals some.
Like-
It heals some.
It heals some. Yeah, yes, exactly. So
What does it heal?
yeah, but like I feel like that also plays into other parts of the game where you just don't talk. You don't like. It's like almost like there is no war in Bossing Say. There is no numbers to these characters. Like you know what I mean? Like it just.
You know what'd be
I don't
really
know.
cool?
It feels weird.
It'd be cool, and what I'd love to see in PvE. I've talked about so many times how big of a Borderlands fan I am. I love seeing the number of damage I do next to somebody, like whether it be really, really small or something. Like in PvE at least, I think it'd be so cool to see like if you heal somebody, like see like for the Ana, like the whatever the heal number is, like if I headshot somebody as May, like the 150,
Maybe
right?
as
Like
an
just
option.
now granted, I'm just super ADHD and I love seeing stuff like that. So like that's just me personally. But for PvE, the more like Borderlands, the better. Shout out to
Like
my
Apex,
that game-
Fortnite
that
type
game
of
was
style.
awesome.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Maybe
Does
it's an
Apex do it
option,
too?
maybe it's an option.
It does.
Yeah,
it
you do.
does,
You-
And
yeah.
the shield crack,
Yeah.
thing comes up as well.
Mhm.
Yeah,
My bet
Yeah,
it's a
I mean-
marketing decision where they're distinctly trying to say this game isn't as complicated as those other games you
As
don't
a-
want to
yeah.
play.
Also, it's like the MOBA hangover, because like this is
Even
the
though it
MOBA
is.
problem of like you open the game and you see like 25 numbers fly up
Yeah.
in your face and you're like, whoa, mama.
Meanwhile, the new
Right.
character probably has so many buttons that you actually, if you play on controller, might need to get a different controller to have all the buttons.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
true.
Also,
Really.
rebind your Life Weaver for sure, because
That's
the
what I was
base
thinking about
kit binds are not great, in my opinion.
They're often not for some of the new heroes, like even Kiriko. Like I think everyone is rebound there, left
Yep.
click, right click around, like by this
Doom
point.
Fist.
Sojourn too, and
Doomfist.
Sojourn, and yeah, Doom. That was the silliest one to me. Moving Slam off E was like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna get picky with that. That's silly. It's all good. It's a simple swap, but either way, continuing on.
Yeah,
I
you
also
can
think
customize it, thankfully.
One last thing I want to add to this wider discussion that we're having, which I think Flats alluded to, I think the reason the battle royale genre has been so has stayed the test of time is that it is the most easily you just hop in. even if you're years late to the party, like, because I think even Valorant is suffering from the same problem of like, now that it's been like a few years since the game is released, the like catch up time is super high. Like even your average, what's the lowest rank? Iron? Like even your average like Iron player or whatever is just better than your newbie who's never played Valorant, right? Because they've just off the experience of the game. So like the inflation of like even the low end is so high that it's hard for like a brand new player to get in. And we're seeing that with Overwatch. Whereas with battle royales, like it's not that bad. Like you still it's like the principle of the game is really simple of just like you fly in and you shoot stuff. And the guns change all the time. So like you don't have to necessarily understand the implicit meta guns all the time or anything. You know, you can kind of pick up in what works for you. Whereas again, like you know, the Valorant and the Overwatch effect and the MOBA effect. The original is the MOBA effect of like this is way too hard for a new person to like understand. And I wonder if that's just gonna be that's just how it will be for like live service games. Like, you know, that's why I think that's why we periodically need new live service games because like people get stale and bored of like, well, I don't want to get back into Valorant. I'm like 3 years late now and I don't want to have to bother catching up on all this shit. Like this is, you know, I need something new to play where I'm on an even playing field with everyone so I can actually like have fun.
Feels like we're right there now with gaming.
Yep.
And Overwatch is going to get worse at this, not better, anytime soon when they keep adding heroes and the type of heroes they're adding as well. Like, think about how much more complicated the Overwatch 2 heroes are in comparison to Overwatch 1 heroes. Like, in one way, I love it because I hate Moira as like a concept. It's like, you're just
really? I actually like Moira as a concept. Hot take.
Well, you want supports to just hide in the back and do nothing, Flats. That's why.
Well, no, I want them to have. I think having a character who is quite simplistic but good at what they do is not bad. Like she has a bailout. She's good at healing. She's good at doing damage without having to aim very much. Good at AOE healing. You know what I mean? Like, and even her ult, she builds it super fast. Yeah, it's actually a great thing for casual players or people that are not that good at the game. And then as you climb, you get the more complex heroes, or you know how to use them a little bit better. I think that's fine. I don't think anything's wrong with that.
The comfort pick, as described by the guy.
Comfort pick, you're right.
ML's hilarious reaction.
Hey, wait. The comfort pick.
Wait, there's
healer.
an emote. I have an emote on that now. There's the ML7 emote now.
Did you see? Did you hear them talk about they want more highlights? And when they said that, was that an admission of guilt? They said that with the Moira change. Of like they want to see more highlights for support players and just fading into the backline. I actually think they were talking about like TikTok Moiras. I was like, no shot. This is a TikTok Moira buff. Are you shitting me? Like,